After 9 years of absence, the king has finally returned. I'm Demetrius, and welcome to the Brumakian podcast. This is an epic genre review series where I can review anything, but not everything. That includes monster movies, both big and small, anime, and video games. This week is the Return of Godzilla. I could say Godzilla 84 edition, but I'm going with the one that is more common. Terror of Mechagodzilla was intended as the last film in the series, at least for a few years. The main reason for that is because the box office reception for the film was less than ideal. But that didn't stop Toho from trying to reinvigorate the franchise several times over for the rest of the 1970s. Originally, Toho announced a colorized remake of the original Godzilla titled The Rebirth of Godzilla for 1977. I wonder what that would have looked like. Unfortunately, the project was thrown into a garbage can, never to be seen again. 1 year later, another attempt was made when Toho announced two co-production projects with UPA Studios with producer Henry G. Saperstein titled Godzilla vs. the Devil and Godzilla vs. Gargantua. Unfortunately again, both projects were also thrown into the same garbage can. In 1979, Godzilla's 25th anniversary, series creator and producer Tomoyuki Tanaka took charge of reviving the franchise. Things would be different, however, as this project is intended as a return to form. What do I mean by that? You'll know soon enough. This is in the wake of the 3 Mile Island accident that happened on Londonderry Township, Pennsylvania. Would you call this good timing or bad timing? Tanaka was encouraged to do this thanks to the contemporary success of King Kong 77 edition, Invasion of the Bounty Snatchers, Alien, and The Thing. What those movies have in common was they were adult-oriented horror. Not that Tanaka was trying to make Godzilla an actual horror, although that would be something new. In 1980, a draft was submitted titled Resurrection of Godzilla by Tanaka and Akira Murao. I hope I said that right. And this is the first of many to feature an unmade movie monster that has never left the page onto the camera. Bagan. Bagan, or Bakken with a K, was originally a shape-shifting monster that was in the backdrop of an illegal nuclear waste disposal site. Morao and, I'm attempting to say this name right, Hideaki Nakahara collaborated to revise the script. Sadly, this project, like the other 3 concepts, was thrown into the garbage. I know that there is an attempt to make an American Godzilla film, but I'm going to save that for another film that I'm going to get to in a few episodes. But back in Japan, there was a great amount of pressure from a group calling themselves the Godzilla Resurrection Committee, numbering 10,000 members. Christ, if you thought Twitter was bad today, imagine dealing with this shit back in the 80s, without the existence of the internet. Because of this, Tanaka decided to helm a Japanese-only film for, quote, domestic consumption. But what was going to be different from the previous films? Easy. Instead of the heroic moniker that was the main thing in the early 1970s, this film is intended as the sequel of the original 1954 film. In other words, it's right back to the King's dark and anti-nuclear roots. And in order for it to work in the then modern day, Ishiro Honda was offered to be the director of the project. Unfortunately, Honda declined as he was an assistant director to Akira Kurosawa with the films Kagemusha and Ran. Another person who respectfully declined an offer, in this case as the music composer, was Akira Ifukube. Rumor has it that he doesn't write music for 80-meter monsters. That was later clarified as a joke by fans. The actual reason was that Ifukube had priorities at the time teaching composition at the Tokyo College of Music. In their places, Koji Hashimoto was placed as the director and Rijiro Kuroku as the music composer. And as for the special effects, they are handled by Teruyoshi Nakano. And this is what he had to say on the fact that Godzilla is going back dark. We went back to the theme of nuclear weapons since that was the theme of the original film. Japan has learned 3 times what nuclear disaster is, but at the time Japan had already had 2. The problem was, Japanese society was gradually forgetting about these disasters. They were forgetting how painful it had been. Everyone in Japan knew how scary nuclear weapons were when the original film was made, but it wasn't like that by the 1980s. So in those meetings, we decided to remind all those people out there who had forgotten. And that was certainly the case because The Return of Godzilla was released on December 15, 1984, and here is its plot synopsis according to IMDb. The Japanese government suppresses the horrifying news of Godzilla's resurrection. Trust me, I'll get to that in a few movies. As political tensions increase between the United States and the Soviet Union, both of whom are willing to bomb Japan to stop the monster. And not even once did they even think of the collateral damage and the death toll. Fucking heartless. Familiarity with a breath of fresh air this movie is. I am currently a sucker for learning world history, so I like that the Cold War was used as a backdrop. The actual story itself is refreshing, however, there are some things to critique. I do like the story as a whole, but I noticed that it was going at a much slower pace than the others that came before it. Not a bad thing, but it is really noticeable. Also, I am surprised that we didn't get to see other people's reactions to Godzilla's return aside from the main group. And while I'm no stranger when it comes to politics, especially in my YouTube novels, I welcome it here. It's not as in your face as the American version is, trust me, I'll get to that in a second. And I like that Japan is not safe even within their own bubble. The human characters are the standard good, meaning that they are not gloriously amazing or absolutely horrendous. The cast play their roles alright, okay? They're alright. No one in my view stands out from the rest. Well, except for the Prime Minister. You can tell that he has the most difficult job, not just running a country or protecting it, but also having to deal with a lot of bullshit outside of it. And I feel like we can all relate to that. Alright, let's talk about the real star of the film. Godzilla in this is a very interesting one. He's not being portrayed as a revengeful god taking his anger out on those who made him suffer. He's just an animal, a normal animal, that is also a wonky natural disaster like a tornado, an earthquake, or a hurricane, or a typhoon in this instance we're talking about the Pacific. And I'm not gonna lie, I like that kind of change. And before I go any further, I'd like to mention this before I forget about it. After Haruo Nakajima retired from suit acting, There have been some who have played the role of Godzilla, but they were not permanent. However, there is one man in this who is Kenpachiro Satsuma, and he's the new guy to play the titular monster. Now, if you think with the 84 suit it would be much better than the original suit, right? Well, no. Like Nakajima, Satsuma had a hard time with that bitch of a fucking suit. And it's a nice suit too. I like that Toho gave the king his fangs and his ears back, not to mention the fourth toe, but it doesn't save him from looking a bit derpy. While I'm on the topic of special effects, my god are they miles better than what they were before. Well, not all of them. There are still some wires that are seen, and the giant foot doesn't hold up at all today. And do I need to mention that the animatronic just looks stiff? Yeah, instead of puppets, thanks to 1980s technology, the effects guys are using a Robozilla for the close-up shots, and boy does it not look good. What was one of the issues of the original Godzilla applies here. The animatronic does not match the actual suit. I'm sure that it looked cool back in 1984, but it didn't age well. And lastly, the music. Holy shit, I love it. It has that horror tinge to it. My favorites are the opening, Godzilla's arrival, destruction of the power plant, and to the Prime Minister's relief. The ending song is so fucking cheesy and corny, even for 1984. Finally, I would like to mention the American version, Godzilla 1985. I think it's no secret that it's the inferior version. Also, say what you will about Godzilla King of the Monsters, 1956 edition, but at least that version still respected the original movie. Here, I don't need an agenda shoved in my face, mates. But just like King of the Monsters, Raymond Burr, even though a minor of a role as it is, kills it as Mr. Martin. His speech at the end is well written and summarized Godzilla perfectly. Overall, I did enjoy the Return of Godzilla. Like I said, it is a breath of fresh air to see this character back to where he started out as. Sure, not all the way with it, although I would have loved it to see where that would have looked like, but I'm glad overall. Again, there are some things that kind of make me go, oof, yeah, that doesn't work, but at the end of the day, it is still an enjoyable thrill, and I will watch it again in a heartbeat. If you are just joining this show, and if you want to see how this monster came about, and the monster movies that came afterwards, you can click on the playlist in a minute. Thank you all for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more of the Brumakian podcast. This has been Demetrius signing off, and hail to the king.